It's quite cool.
Hello and welcome to The Wise Why. This morning I am joined by somebody who just, gets me, which I really like, a business mentor and an amazing man who I was a little bit intimidated by, Mike Foster. So Mike doesn't know this, but I was petrified to go and speak to him for a very long time. But then I did, and I just found that he is just incredible, and his insights and his mind is powerful. But as usual, the Wise Why is not about me, it is about my guest. So straight over to you, Mike. Please introduce yourself.
Wow. Well, thanks, Kirsty. That's really, really kind. And I do worry about that sometimes in terms of, I've had that phrase to me a couple of times that I'm intimidating for some people. So I might have to explore that with you a bit more. But yeah, Mike Foster, the entrepreneur's mentor, do as it says on the tin and also on my waistcoat. The man behind the waistcoat predominantly helps people to develop their business, improve their business, to grow, scale their business. And it's about achieving success as they define themselves, not by me, not by some book that they read. What is their purpose, what's their why, what is it they're trying to achieve, and where they are now, what the gap is, and where they're trying to achieve to. And I work with my clients to put that plan in place, but also to act as a sounding board. The reason why I position myself as a mentor rather than just a business coach, and I do coach my clients, but I found in my own coaching experience and doing my market research that people got frustrated with coaching sometimes because, how would you do that? What do you think you should do? And people got, I don't know the answer, the reason I've engaged you, etc. So I use my experience, as you kindly said in the intro bio of this event, to say that, I use my experience, my expertise, my knowledge to give a case study, to give an example, and predominantly to fuel or spark my clients' reaction to their own thoughts, to then say, okay, this is how I'm going to develop my business. This is how I'm going to take that one forward. And, that sounding board, that additional pair of eyes, that additional pair of ears is a place that I help my clients, because often running a business is a very lonely place. And I've just built on that experience of being an old business owner myself, if you like. A few grey hairs have taken me that way, but I've run 6 of my own businesses, and before that I was part of a startup which was Soul Ledger, which broke away from South Oxfordshire District Council. The startup got into my blood when I was area manager for Barclays business startup team here in Oxfordshire.
Honestly, I now know exactly why, funny enough, use the word why, I found you slightly intimidating, because we have a crossover, which I would never have really put that together. But more importantly, I must say that there's a couple of people who say that I'm intimidating too. So I kind of like that. The why. No, I called this the Wise Why because everyone was talking about the why. And I find the why fascinating, because it's not just about why you do something, it's about why somebody buys you. There's so many reasons about the why. And yet, why is the most insulting question you can ever ask somebody, because think about the kids going, why? I wonder if you could explore a little bit more about that.
Well, I quite often encourage my clients to go into child mode and keep asking themselves why, to really drill down into their value, to drill down into how their marketing works, to drill down into X, Y, Z. In terms of my why, I think it was quite an interesting journey for me. I think I left school when I could at 15. I was actually working for Barclays 2 weeks before my 16th birthday, because I wanted to get into business and I wanted to start earning money. And every single one of my mates went off to university. And it's probably been an interesting journey for me since then, in terms of them all going to university and me taking my path. But yeah, I wanted to earn money. I wanted to earn money fairly quickly. I could see a salary that would be higher than what a lot of people of my age at that time were earning. And I think that was a result of watching my parents work really, really, really hard. My dad used to get up really early to go off to the British Leyland, as it was at that time. My mum used to get up early to go to City Motors, as it was at that time, where the BMW garage now is. And she and him had a couple of other responsibilities as well that they managed. And so I admired that hard work, and that's always been part of my makeup, I guess, my DNA. And my why was predominantly at the start to earn money and contribute. Then I got into the business side of Barclays fairly quickly. Done all the sort of stuff like around cashiering and financial services, etc. Got into the business side and then worked my way through from being a business banker, as we called them at the time, then being a business manager, and then looking after the local startup team in Oxfordshire. And I think that's where the the why really came forward for me then at that time, when I realized I was in control. I was in control of my destiny. I was never going to be capped by a salary or controlled by a corporate, if you like, because I wanted to get out of the corporate rat race, and I did, and started my own businesses. I did realize that you had to blend some of that corporate life back into your small business, that some of those great tools that you have in corporate. So I probably ended up with a bit more respect than I did on the day that I left corporate, if you like. So that was my why. My purpose was to earn money, to be independent, and to, in effect, not cap what my earnings would be, and in effect have something that I could exit from in the future for some future wealth of myself.
I love it because, and I really do, because I spent 10 years in the corporate world. And if it wasn't for the corporate world, I wouldn't be actually in a situation where I just checked my bank account and went, oh, I'm quite chuffed with that. And yeah, I've only been going, 3 years. So I'm still very much learning. And I am, and this is something I really say to people, I am now on a new business development course. I'm sitting there going, well, I've got 3 years. How do I get to 5 years? And I wondered if you could share some wisdom there, because they talk about, if you get to 3 years, then that's great. But most businesses fail, I believe, by year 5. And I'm worried, I'm in a good cash position, but it's also that thing of, how do I scale? Because that's the big thing. I wondered if you could share some advice to somebody, actually, not that I'm asking for free advice, but share some advice at this point about somebody who else might be in my position, who hasn't recognized that they need to go on another course, and how you actually scale.
Yeah, an interesting question. And I would add, actually, in terms of the corporate world, gave me a fantastic foundation of training. And I respect to Barclays, because I still refer to a lot of that now. I think in terms of scale, you're at that interesting point for a lot of businesses, in terms of come through what I call the first brick wall, that sort of three-year period. What we tend to see before that in the startup mode is a bit of kidding ourselves to start with, whereby how tough it is, but we haven't really gone out and worked on our business or marketed our business really well. We just think it's going to happen for us. And then things start to happen when we get over that hump, and we start to realize. And a lot of businesses have a really nice period, and instead of looking at their bank balance smiling, they're looking at their bank balance thinking, that's a bit tight, but look, I've got a Mercedes on the driveway, or I've moved house, or they've invested in some asset because they've rewarded themselves. And don't get me wrong, I don't think we shouldn't reward ourselves, but I do think we have to be mindful of the longer term picture in terms of impacting cash. Someone asked me yesterday, what's the number one thing I need to think about? And it's about cash. It's about cash generation. So what makes the money in your business, and are you focusing on that? But how do you spend that cash, and how do you invest that cash? And as soon as you see an expenditure in your business that's not an expense, not an investment, you see it as a cost, then you need to consider removing that expense. Now, in terms of that 3 to 5 year, you then get to that point whereby you get to a dynamic where you're going, now I'm really busy myself. I'm probably pushing capacity as I need to. So do I put my prices up to earn more revenue and cap my time, if you like, if it's a service business, which is predominantly what I work with, or do I need to hire somebody or outsource or automate more to take that forward? And the first place to look at is automation. I'm going through a period at this moment in time looking at AI and automation tools to even reduce my time so I can improve my capacity. I'm looking at ways of trying to help more businesses so that I can do group stuff rather than one-to-one stuff to maximize my time. But then you get that point whereby, and I've seen a lot of businesses go forward and then come back a little bit, three steps forward, one step back, whereby they've hired some people and then they realize a little bit further down the line, they go, well, all I'm doing is working really hard to pay their wages. And that's a mindset shift that we have to think about where that investment really is. And saying, okay, well, if you've hired those people, but you're still at capacity, what was the real purpose of hiring those people? Was it the purpose to really, or the why, as you like, really to free you up, but you didn't allow yourself to be freed up? You just basically took some resource benefit from you, and then you just capped yourself again. And they're saying, okay, well, again, it's a little bit what I was saying in my introduction. It's saying, okay, well, where do you want to be in 3, 5, 10 years time? And that's, for a lot of small businesses, that's going to waver a little bit, but it's pretty firm in terms of, and I connect that to people's why and purpose. And then we're going to bring that back to a line in the sand in a year's time and say, okay, well, if we're going to go on a trajectory towards that 3, 5, 10 years, where do we need the business to be in a year's time? Does that mean that myself as an individual, I'm only working at 50% of my capacity as in terms of fee earning, for example, and then I've got a team around me that are delivering the cream of profits over their time to top up what I'm earning, that allows me to focus on other things, which is about building that business. But we all have that different reason why. It may be that you love, and I know you love what you do, and you may love what you do, so therefore you want to be at capacity because you still want to work with clients, you still want to do what you do, but therefore you've got a team that's just putting a little bit of extra cream on there. So I think it's about investing on what you think is your right journey. It's about defining clearly what that journey is. Again, the why, as we talk about. And I think it's then, when we make our profits at that bottom, are we making enough profits? If not, then what do we need to do? Do we need to raise our prices, get more customers, make our expenses more lean to give us that bigger pot at the bottom? And then when we've got that pot at the bottom, it's okay, it's now my choice what I do with that. Do I go and buy that Mercedes or move house or etc., 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 or do I reinvest in the business? If I'm going to reinvest in the business, where is the best place for that reinvestment to be? Is it systems, processes, AI, or is it on a team, or is it on an outsourced resource, etc., etc.?
That's brilliant advice, because I am reinvesting in the business, and I will say to everybody, watch this space, because I'm looking at what I can bring in. And like you said, where I really excel is in group training. If I've got 8 or 20 people in a room, now I have I've expanded my client, my training base as well. So I'm bringing more trainers. But actually what I found was I need trainers with commercial, that commercial background, because as much as I do public speaking, and we were just talking about this in the studio, as much as I do public speaking and confidence on camera, I'm actually looking at that real nitty gritty business acumen and what you're saying. And it's not about having the perfect voice for me. Now, there are people that coach that, but it's not actually what I do. I'm looking at creating you being the best you can be. So that was really great advice. On that note, because you've 6 businesses, I'm wondering, of course, there will have been moments where you've gone, or that was a brilliant idea. So I'm wondering if you could share any highs and lows that you've been through with the ahas.
So one of my learns of having 6 businesses was probably too much. I had 5 businesses at once at one time, and it was predominantly because it suited my character, and that's why mentoring suits my character. And I've now got a business that I've established, looking at my why and purpose, that suits me individually. So I get up every single morning with a different client who's got a different challenge, a different goal, an objective, something that's top of mind that they want to discuss with me. And because of my broad knowledge, I can discuss most things with people. So that ticks me. Historically, when I first set up a business, which was a bookkeeping and accounts business, and that was because of my finance background, I loved that business, but I think the entrepreneur in me kept seeing opportunities. So I set up a marketing company, I set up a training company, I set up a membership organization. I eventually had an indoor soft play center. And they were all just opportunities through my journey that I saw that I could do. And I think it was, I'm going to explore those opportunities and I'm going to make some money out of those opportunities. And it suited me because one day I was doing somebody's management accounts in the accounting business. And then the next day I would jump over and I'd be doing a marketing training of some sort, or delivering someone's marketing, or helping them put their strategy together. The next day I might be delivering some first aid training, for example. And then the next day I might be putting on the chipper suit at the Treehouse Play Centre in Didcot and being the mascot character, all those things. And I just loved it. I was just buzzing. But what was my learns from it? Well, my learns was from, where was my focus? Now, I eventually franchised and sold my accounting and bookkeeping business, but I think there's still an opportunity for that business right now. So if I'd have kept it going, that was like, 10 years ago now, 2013, actually, about this time last year, 10 years ago. And if I'd have kept that business, what would it be now? Would the value be higher? But it was my journey. I don't look back with regret on that. So don't spread yourself too thinly would be one advice from that side of it. I think the highs for me were that seeing the benefit of bringing great people around you. So you hit the nail on the head in terms of you profiled and defined who you want around you, not necessarily somebody that's even that perfection that some business owners are looking for in their employee. I'm looking for the perfect employee, because if they are, they're going to be darn expensive, but also going to be potentially recruited by other people fairly quickly. So again, I will always love to invest in people. So can I take people on who have got the skill and the ability to work with me? First of all, I always say, can they follow my systems and processes? Have they got that mindset to follow my systems and processes? If they can do that to start with, then they have the permission to come in and with their own innovation and creativity, improve my business. because this is the way that we do things around here. This is over my years of experience. This is how I've learned how my business and my customers tell me this is the best way we do it. So why would we change anything right now? But actually, once you've done that, and you follow in those systems, and we've got some consistency, so we can all support each other and cover for each other for holidays, sickness, etc., then you'll be able to help me improve this business. And I always found, and one of my aha moments as well, is I never got disappointed about losing anybody. And I've got this conversation going on with a couple of clients at the moment. I've never was disappointed about losing. There was a moment, because we all think that's a rejection moment, but I always felt that the next employee leveled up my business, took my business to another point, because the first employee embraced my systems and process and took me there. The next, and changed my systems and processes. The next person came in, embraced those systems and processes, and took it there. So I was never disappointed from that side of it. So that was another moment. And I think the other aha. Go on.
No. I was just going to say I love it, because that's exactly what I'm doing with my VA. So Zoe, now you know what I'm doing with you. Anyway, back to you, Mike. I just thought, oh my goodness, Zoe, you now know.
And I think the other thing in terms of my aha moment is my acceptance of risk. So being an ex-banker, I still don't have an overdraft. I still don't have a loan. I have a mortgage, but I still don't have debt, because that was just in my mindset. And I had to sort of like shift that risk focus a little bit to be able to take a little bit more risk. I'm not a huge risk taker, but I do take more risk than I ever did. But I'm a calculated risk taker. So I work out, if I'm going to spend £1, what's that going to give me in a return on investment? It comes back to something I said earlier. If I've got an expense in my accounts that I never see now as an investment, and therefore returning me more than the £1 that I've invested, then I'm looking at ways to change that or even get rid of that. And we all get attracted to shiny things, don't we, in terms of the next piece of software or whatever that may be that's costing us money, but are we actually returning that investment? And I think in terms of my learns, if you like, I think one of my other learns is, and this is a big journey that I've been on, is it's a very common word to use, and I don't necessarily like it, but it's the imposter syndrome, or the monkey that's the chimp paradox monkey that's sat on our shoulder that's talking to us and telling us, and I've driven myself with that monkey, I guess, in times, but it's also impacted me to say, look, you're not doing as good a job as you could have done, or you're listening to what other people are doing in the marketplace, and why are people leveraging into that business rather than your own business. And when I sort of shut that out, and when I stopped going onto my apps to look at the news and all that sort of stuff, my mindset changed totally. I just was doing what I needed to do. And I think, again, another learn is that, there are people in the world that look out for you, for sure, but the only person that really looks out for you, truly looks out for you, is yourself. And if you don't look after yourself, and you keep your motivation pot high, and you keep fueling this stress pot, ultimately something goes wrong, something overflows. And I've been there, I've been to near burnout and all that sort of stuff.
And thank you so much for sharing that. There's a lot of wisdom in there, and it was interesting listening to what you're saying. That monkey, that imposter syndrome. I've got and I don't know if it's because I was an actor, because I have to prepare, and I find that a lot of things that people do, particularly the 7 whys, they can all be related back to acting techniques. When people talk about, I think it's NLP, where they talk about anchoring yourself. Well, that's a Stanislavski technique to connect with the terra firma and be rooted in the spot and own your space. And there's a lot of terminology that really links actually between the acting technique and what we do in business. But when I was training as an actor, I thought I was a little bit stupid. I'm going to be brutally honest. I didn't know at the time I was dyslexic and dyspraxic. That came along a lot later. But I thought, a lot of people look at performance and go, well, because you can do a twirl, and again, I was particularly a dancer, singer, actor, because you can do a twirl, you probably don't have, you didn't go to university, you learned how to twirl. And that has a kind of impact on how you really feel. So when I came into the world of business, I used to use all my acting skills to get me through the day. I used to pull on, I'm playing a character. And there is an element that when my imposter syndrome comes in, and it comes in a lot, it really does. And I have to go, no, that's not the character's voice that I'm going to hear today.
Yeah, I have something similar. You might not be old enough to remember. When I mention this now, I need to think of a different
Hang on.
phrase. But
But on
I
that
mentioned,
one, Mike, I'm in my 50s. We're probably really close in age.
oh, we probably are then. So you probably remember Wurzel Gummidge then,
Of course I do.
and yeah. So Wurzel Gummidge, he changed his head for the different circumstances. And people say to me, "How do you do your networking or your radio show or your mentoring, etc.?" And quite often, a little bit like your reference to acting, is I put the different head on. So someone said to me the other day, how do you go on the radio in that moment every single week? And I go, well, predominantly it's because I put that head on. I could have a really bad day up to that point, but I know I switch on at that moment. When I used to host my networking event, it was about switching on at that moment and saying, okay, well, this is what I need to do. This is how I need to perform. This is how I need to act in the view of the people that will come into the events, and forget about myself for a moment.
So I'm smiling all the way through this because I'm going, we really need to go and get a glass of wine, because we are actually, there's a lot of similarities here in the way that we think and we do. Because you were talking about that multiple job situation, multiple businesses. And whilst I didn't do multiple businesses, when I was performing as an actor and hunting for that acting role, not only was I an actor, I was an event manager. I was a sales trainer for Intel. I would work on the shop floor in Harrods and Selfridges and the makeup counters. There was other jobs that I would be doing. So one minute I'd have my Nintendo head on. The next minute I'd have my Schweppes straight cut head on. Another day I'd be going and doing some kind of sign up to this gym. In fact, that's how I met my husband. And all of these things is exactly what you do as an actor. So there's a lot of similarities in the way, and of course, acting, every audition, you're changing your head. And of course, I love Wurzel Gummidge because he's local to Oxfordshire.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't deny that. I think it was it not written in Blueberry? I've got a funny feeling. I could be wrong, but I've got a funny feeling it was written in Blueberry. Who's inspired you? I'm really, because you're such a strong. I mean, the first time I met you was actually without you seeing me, and it was on was it chat room, one of those calls, and you popped in at the last minute and then you disappeared, and that's where I went, oh my goodness, because I couldn't see you, I could just hear your voice. I knew how powerful you were, and it was with I think I can never get the names right. It was Chris Jones, and was it Plessy? Have I got the name right?
Okay. Yeah. Plessy.
Passy, yeah. So
Yeah.
who's inspired you along the way?
Well, I think I touched on one, which is, I think, obvious for me to mention, is my parents, in terms of their hard work and their giving to other people. I think is in my DNA, and I think that's why you see me doing what I do for charities, what I do for helping other people in terms of the role I do now, but also the networking group I used to have. I think there's certain influences in my early days in terms of the traditional influences, the Alan Sugars, if you like, when he ran The Apprentice and all that sort of stuff. And that was the early days. I did actually apply for The Apprentice, and I got quite close to being on it, but that's another story.
I think we want to hear a bit more about that, actually.
Well, I actually, well, we all know it's a TV show, don't we? And I actually got through to some sort of final rounds in a hotel in London. A couple of times I had to go up for group sessions, and in those group sessions, well, as we do when we watch the show, you go, really? Are you really saying that? Are you really making that decision? But those were the people that ended up on the show, because I think it's a TV show. Not saying that I should have been on the show because of my business acumen or whatever, but you know what I'm saying. So that was it was an interesting process, and I keep thinking about doing a fundraiser locally in Oxford about an apprentice or something like that, but that may be another time. I think in terms of other people that inspired me, obviously parents, then you got people like Sugar and Branson and all that sort of stuff. Certain sports stars. I don't know why. I'm not a really emotional person, but when I see someone at a sports level go over that line for a gold medal, it's just that brings a tear to my eye. So those sort of people inspire me. But I've had my own mentor from my day in Barclays, Carl, who was my area boss. He was a business partner at one time. And every so often we touch base, we have a conversation, and he's always been my guiding light. You said earlier that I get you, for example. Carl got me, and Carl gave me so many opportunities in my corporate day. He gave me the opportunity to release myself from the corporate into my own businesses, and it has always been supportive. So, I guess that's why I come back to being a mentor and wanting to support others in terms of the way that Carl supported me in that traditional corporate mentor role, but then became my mentor, life mentor, if you like, in helping me initially make some big, huge decisions. And I think as I go day to day now, it's my clients. I think, I get a lot of kind words from my clients about the way that I work with them and the way that I change their business. But I get inspired daily and motivated by them, by the changes that they make, because I don't actually change their business. I have a conversation with them about giving them ideas to spark or fuel there, but they have to go and execute. And it's that moment whereby you see someone you started working with, say, a year ago, that wasn't in execution mode, but now they're executing. And when they're executing, they're seeing change. And when they see change, they're fueling their motivation pot, not their stress pot. And when they're fueling their motivation pot, they can make things happen. And when they're focused and they're not being distracted by interruptions or other distractions, and they're doing the things what I call your high power activities and seeing them move forward, that's inspiring for me. And that makes me think about my own personal development in terms of, okay, well, now I need to think a different way. I need to think of different tools. I need to think of different ways of supporting this client. And that's about pushing me every day. And I journal every single day, believe it or not. I've got in my loft a number of different journals, and I journal every single day, say, what went well today? What could I have done better? And the third thing is, how will I be a better human being tomorrow? And those three things I've captured for now, probably about 14 years, I think it is. And I don't necessarily reflect back on the books, but actually they sit there in my subconscious when I've journaled each day to say, actually, these are the things I can do. And I've got a pile of notes over here, unfortunately, of the things I've got to do to keep taking myself forward in terms of my CPD, to then ultimately support and be inspired and motivated by my clients.
I love it. I celebrate everything, and it can be a simple thing. It could be an email that I've sent, and I know that I nailed it. It can be a graphic that I've designed that I really like. It can be my daughter getting golds. She's tiny. She's really, really tiny. She definitely gets me, because she wants to be an Olympic gold medal gymnast. That's her dream. She's 7 years old. And watching her drive, I'm like, well, that's a mini me, because I was pretty driven. But seeing that reflected is kind of really powerful as well. We've had a couple of questions, which is lovely. So a couple of comments. Good content and thought.
Let me just add very quickly, going back to your 3 to 5 year journey that you're now on. Celebration is such an important part of that journey, because it's going to get rougher. We all know it isn't on that trajectory that I talked about earlier. We know it's an up and down journey. So I think in terms of making sure we celebrate on a daily basis the things that have gone well, balances out the rubbish that comes on our journey.
And I've just spent, and it's no one's fault, but chasing payments, that kind of the back end admin is something that really it can bogged me down. And last night I was sitting here thinking, because I wrote an email to a really good guy who runs his own business, who I'm going to go and see, and it's taken me a couple of weeks to be able to send the email, to arrange the time and the date. And I went, my fingers just can't type that quickly. There's only so many hours in the day, and there's only so many things I can actually execute. And I think that was my biggest learning this year, was to stop trying to do every single thing and accept that some tasks will slip. Don't let them slip too long, because then you're getting into that really rude area. But accept the fact that you're not going to be able to do absolutely everything, so you can walk away at the end of the day and shut the office down, because I didn't, and I burnt out. So, at Christmas last year, I was definitely burnt out, and I hadn't realized or recognized it in myself. And it was because I was trying to execute every single thing, but there's only one set of hands, right?
100%. And I think when we realize that, there's two things there in terms of what fueled my thought there is perfection. We often aim for perfection as business owners, whether that's we don't launch a website till it's perfect, or whatever we do has to be perfect. But actually, your perfect will probably be, if you took 8 out of 10 of that, would probably be 100% for your clients' expectations. And I think then in terms of the other thing is about permission, and do we give ourselves permission not to do everything? And that's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, and it was a tough pill. I think you saw the fallout. So we've had from Ben, Ben Thompson, good content and thought as always, Mike and Kirsty, and then Hayley, who actually I saw, which I haven't been able to really shout out about, but I actually got to see each other this week. I started at Barclays at 15 too. However, the machine room wasn't for me. Luckily, I found my way anyway. Great to meet you, Wurzel, and hear your story experiences. So some nice comments.
The machinery.
So
I
this is
remember
where
the machinery.
Hayley's amazing, absolutely amazing. One of the strongest women I know. Really empowers others. Just awesome. So this is where the tables turn. I've put you in the hot seat. You've shared your wisdom, and this is where I have no idea. And I always have a little bit of a nervous moment here, especially when it's someone like you, where I go, "Oh no, what are they going to ask me?" So it's now time for you to turn the tables and ask me something.
Well, I think the thing that's curious with me, Kirsty, actually, is I love your creativity. I think when we talk, you've always got an idea. I think how you used the words I gave you in my bio in a very creative way. So I'm going to ask the question I think would be curious for the listeners in terms of what drives your creativity.
So I don't know how not to be. And I know that sounds a bit crazy, but I really don't know how not to be a creative. In fact, I tried really hard in a previous role to go into that hard sale, pounding the road, but the creativity was dying. And if I cut that off, it's so part of me that if I cut it off, I suffer really badly. My whole family actually suffers. I've been a performer since I was 8 years old. I started in the drama and theatre world when I was 5, and I don't know how to switch it off. And when I do switch it off, sorry, I do know how to switch it off. But when I do switch it off, it's like something is dying. It's like there's a patch of green. And because I'm neurodiverse, the way my brain fires is, and I know it's the neurodiversity, and I've accepted this. So my brain fires off in a different way, and I explain this as the way I see the world is, or my brain is, I've got a multitude of it's synaptics, but I describe it as filing cabinets. So when somebody tells me they've got a problem, it's like a Rolodex, or the files are flinging in my head like you wouldn't believe, and I'm looking for this connection. So it's a synaptic, and I'm visualizing different ideas and different pathways, and it's quite crazy, and you wouldn't want to be in here, trust me, you really wouldn't, but it goes all over the place. And then I go, right, this could potentially, but I've normally got 1, 2, or 3, because I like to use choices, because choices allow the person to have that thought. Even with when it comes to branding, it's about what's right for you. But I'm working on a project at the moment that I'm actually doing it for free, because I think it's important to give back. And this organization really needs help. They need to raise a huge amount of money, and they haven't got the money to pay somebody, and so the job's not getting done. So I went, you know what? I can't give you all my time, but I can give you some. So I'm going in to do some mentoring. I'm going to go in and hopefully revolutionize the website and really empower them to do. And the big thing is, I'm going to be empowering the future generations to take over and do, so that there's always that through forward going. And I can already see how I, as the outsider in the audience shoes, can see how I would want to use their website and the colors that would appeal to me. So I guess it comes back to that acting thing of, I constantly put myself into the audience shoes to think, how would I search for your product? How would I understand it? And I work in the tech field, really, really technical stuff, but I turn it down or engineering, and I turn it I really simplify it. So I guess it comes back down to that fact that I don't know how not to be creative, but also the neurodiversity is actually a huge strength rather than a weakness, because I need that brain and the way I fire. And finding out at 37 I was dyslexic, rather than finding out at 6 or 7 or 8, allowed me to find a way to cope in this world, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Long way of saying it, I guess.
There's many other questions. There's many other questions you could build on that.
There are, and I would love to keep talking, but I do promise it's going to be half an hour. But maybe this is your chance for you to launch a live, and then you can get me on and we can explore that.
You, as mentioned, there might be that opportunity.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
No, thank you, Kirsty. Thanks for asking me to join your show.
No problem.